So guys, I shifted to my phone so it has better signal. I guess this could be kind of podcasting hack that if you're by like a Starbucks or Tim Hortons and your laptop can't stream enough, stream properly, I more engageable with the phone. But anyways. Okay. Visions of past skies. Is a suggestion of all types of realities we have gone through. And now we are here. Now we are here. 8 billion clueless creatures looking for cosmic clues. So, I gotta apologize, guys. I feel this might be boring for the viewers. Honestly, I don't know what to say. My view on past lives is kind of different, even though the title of the episode is Vision of Past Skies. I guess what I could say about the idea of the sky is that I consider there's an outer sky and there's an inner sky. When somebody, like the idea of a past sky, doesn't have to, a vision of a past sky necessarily doesn't have to be like another lifetime. It could just be like yesterday when you looked at a sky. Right? I mean, see, the concept of reincarnation is not so far-fetched. It's just more expanded in scale. Right? So that means human beings, every morning that we wake up, it's kind of like we're reincarnating from the unconscious. So it's kind of like consciousness is reincarnating every morning, from the unconsciousness of deep sleep. We can't ignore how bizarre it is that we have a conscious waking state, and we have a dream state, and we have a deep sleep state, right? In deep sleep, there is no consciousness of that sort. In dream state, your mind is creating a body and a world that you can experience. That means your body is in the bed, chilling, like sleeping, and then your mind is actually living during the dream state. So dreams are an inner, like a very obvious proof of an inner life. Okay, 100%. Dreams are the proof of the inner realms. If you really need proof, like that level. But if in regards to, like, if we just think about it, deep sleep, no consciousness. I'll say it this way: deep sleep, no experience, no mind, no body. In the dream state, it's like the life of the mind. In the waking state, it's the life of our body, but our consciousness is the continuing life of our mind. We have this view that we wake up from dreams, right? You think you'd wake up in the morning from a dream. But what if the dream state is constant and it's the reality that we keep going in and out of? In monotheistic religions, I don't know if this is correct. I think there could be more. But it's like this idea that the soul is taken in two moments, one at sleep and one at death. Or let's say three, also the apocalypse, the judgment day, you know. So it's kind of, okay, but let's go for those two, death and sleep. These are states that conscious activity leaves the room, okay? Now, isn't it fascinating that 8 billion human beings are scared of death, but they're not scared of sleep? Why? Why are we as conscious psychological entities not afraid of the disappearance of the psyche, but are afraid of the disappearance of the body? That means we're not afraid of the disappearance of the cognitive system, but we're afraid of the disappearance of the biological system. So, what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of like we, right now in 2023 in the outer realms, the consideration is that we're physical beings and we have minds, but we don't know what the mind is, and we're somehow being conscious, but we don't know what really consciousness is. We can't tell if consciousness is a quality of reality. You know, like there's, for example, panpsychism, and then there's like views, for example, religion, where religion is actually saying a consciousness created all other consciousness, because God is the archetype for the greatest consciousness, right? We're conscious of, for example, a body on a rock, okay? But imagine the responsibility level of a being that its body is the whole world. That means if the whole world was your body, how would you be responsible for it as a non-physical mind? So it's another way of saying this world is not just physical beings noticing the non-physical. It's also beings that have started in the universal self in that world, from that world. They have started as non-physical. You see, it's like a video game, and you see, for example, different types of characters. You know, you see, for example, a character that's customized for long-range attacks. And then you see, for example, there's a character customized for short-range attacks, right? That it's another way of saying from the initial starting point, there's multiple variations. This doesn't mean that there's multiple origin stories, but it means that the origin multiplied. A life beyond life is a suggestion that the life that we're living now is not the real life. So if 8 billion creatures, they get this experience that they're on a rock in the middle of spinning in the middle of nowhere, like, it's so bizarre because if we choose to see a meaning to existence, it's as if we're saying the existence is not enough. But because our mind seems to be beyond existence, that's why maybe the existence is not enough. I think maybe beings in this world are suffering because existing is not enough. I mean, it makes sense. We have a mind. The mind is aware of different movements of our body. Even though the brain is inside the body, you experience your body within your whole moment's mind, within your mind. So it's so bizarre that something internal has led to an external experience. You know, there are moments when I look at the human species and I wonder if we're all human. Behaviorally, sure. Appearance-wise, sure. But when it comes to the notion of meaning, the notion of understanding, the notion of observing, we are going into the domain of wondering about the observer. And the best way I have found to speak about it is that, right, what's going on here is that an unknown observing space is knowing observable matter. So when we go to the question, does matter matter? The way matter matters is that its meaning is not material. For example, you look at, let's say you take a bunch of sticks, right? You put it and you know, try to kindle a fire. The sticks are leading to a result that is not the stick. Do you know what I'm saying? That means it's like they took sticks and stones and made fire. Now Mr.Within is saying, yo, 8 billion human beings, what are they going to lead to? I think that's an incredible point, you know? That it's not per se a visual destiny. The concept of heaven and hell seem to be visual destinies. I'm not saying there isn't lower worlds and upper worlds, but I'm saying that the way the worlds are upper and lower are from a mind that's not in the world, actually. I do think about my sense of past life, something people don't know, which I've kind of held to share at the proper time. But I guess maybe I'll just share it now. I mean, I've shared it before, maybe like a talk or two. But the family that I come from, my father was a very in tune individual, and he had experiences with past lives. The idea of past lives was like the early days of like when I was young. That idea was no longer new for me. But as life went forth, I wondered about, okay, what sort of life could I have lived that I'm being what is here now? What way did universal energy move as a focal point before here? I get it based on the sense of what I've done. The sense is that most likely there were things that as a being that were cultivated to be said, and now they're being said. The idea of reincarnation is fascinating simply because if you think about how many days in this world you have you have slept and woken up. Like, think about it. How many times on this planet have you stepped in and out of conscious reality? I think the deep sleep state is proof that there is non-visual continuity. That means you don't have to know you're being a being in order to be. But because you're being, you can know you're being. And pretty much it's like I'm saying, who am I before I am? Anyways, guys, I'm going to end the episode here. Visions of past skies is a suggestion that you're more ancient than your new experiences. Energy is ancient. Maybe its forms are new, but energy, like if it can't be created, destroyed, it's like the most ancient thing ever. It even predates time. Isn't that hilarious? There was, in order for us to pinpoint time as matter changing in space, there had to be an energy to take the form of matter. So the secrets of energy surpass the secrets of time. So that means if a being is playing around with time, then there could be a suggestion that an energetic being may be more advanced. That means if somebody is experiencing themselves as just energy, you're not a psychic construct, so you're not actually filtering the experience of reality to suffer from it. That's what I mean, that energy is ancient. It's another way of saying you have been before you have been a person. That's what I'm saying. The energy has been present before you appeared, or you took shape, or were born, or whatever. So if energy has always been here, and this energy is changing from form to form, and we are the forms that are identifying with the change, then perhaps the acceptance of being is the realization that this world is an energetic truth. And energetic truth doesn't mean the individualizations or the specific, like the uniqueness of, let's say, the experiences of mind. Like it does, and just because we're energy, I'm not saying like we're not a mind, we're not individuals, but it's kind of like the mystery of reality is how is this energy organizing itself. Okay, I think it should be like like such a huge mystery for anybody who entertains the idea of the Big Bang. And the great mystery is the idea of cosmic inflation. How it's understandable, like there's this like hot pool of energy and it's cooling down, and like the fraction of a second, like endless manifestations of cosmos appear because this energy is cooling down, right? And how we came, if I remember correctly, how we came to this realization as a species was that, how do I say it? There's like energy. There's a sort of presence. Here, I'll say it this way. We looked at the Hubble telescope, began to notice background radiation. We began having a consideration that there is time and there's space. Excuse me. There was background radiation from the Hubble telescope, and we pretty much realized the universe is cooling down. The cosmic inflation is a suggestion that in the fraction of a second, and tons of organized manifestation appeared. Okay, isn't that bizarre? Isn't it bizarre that suddenly organized phenomena appears in the middle of nowhere? Now, granted, somebody can make the argument that nowhere is not nowhere. But how else do we accept a location? The concept of a location means there is something in the middle of nowhere. Or where else are we standing on? Where are we? Right? So for me, the mystery of life, sure, I often say that life is an unknown verb rather than you treating yourself like a known noun. But I right now I'm realizing that it's the organization, it's the geometry of this world that's blowing. That's the mystery. Okay, right? It's understandable that energy, or let me say it this way, like there's potential energy, it becomes kinetic energy. Like that's understandable. It's easy to understand a verb, believe it or not. But when it comes to seeing the uniqueness of why a noun is here, like why do trees look the way they do? And of course it reverse engineers back into because of this. There was this funny thing. I'll tell you this funny story, and it's a real story. There was this kid in India, this let's say young man. And this young man was living with his parents in India. His parents kick him out of the house. This young man says, "You can't kick me out of this house. You brought me into this world. I'm your responsibility." It's like, I didn't ask to be born. Since, you brought me into this world, you have to, do this. And this kid, this messed up kid, this foolish kid, goes to court and sues his parents. Now check out this hilarious story. This kid's like, "Yo, I'm gonna sue my parents who brought me in this world without me asking for my permission," and all this. And so this thing evidently goes to court, and look at how hilarious. The parents are like, "You foolish kid," and so the judge's like, "Okay, this is a weird argument. Parents, what do you have to say?" And the parents say, "We didn't ask to be born either. It was our parents, right? So you can't sue us. You have to go sue them," right? Do you see the hilarity, right? And so, you can't even sue the parents of the parents because it was their parents' fault. And what I'm saying this, it's all reverse engineering back to an unknown excuse that started out of nowhere. All stories, origin stories, all this rationality, these are excuses. This is why, I tell people that honestly, when in my utter honesty, we are unknown beings. Now, I was interviewing a very incredible individual, his YouTube channel, Hassan Al Saidi. And he gave an incredible metaphor to this argument of me saying the unknown. And he was saying that, hey man, what if you realizing the unknown is like you not having glasses? And because you're looking at things blurry, you think everything is unknown. Great argument. But, you know, it's like, who you talking to, man? It's me. Not joking. It's a great argument because the suggestion was that you're experiencing the unknown because the truth of it is not clear. Now, my counter argument to this beautiful response to what I was saying, incredible response to what I was saying, is that no. If I treat myself as a noun, sure, the noun is experiencing something blurry. But if we are unknown verbs, if there is motion, how can I turn a verb into a noun? I would have to stop being a verb. So in order for me to accept that this world has a known truth, it would have to mean that I would have to ignore its moving. Do you understand the complexity here? It's like everything is changing except change. Everything is moving except the notion of movement, for example. So, in my utter honesty, I can tell you that it's a sort of game, this place. You're in a game. What sort of game? A game of responsibility. This is what I find. Okay, I don't have common, my views vary from secular and also certain spiritual views. Some people are under the impression spirituality means you are non-physic, like you just have to be a let's say right now I realized that I'm an eternal being and I have never died and I have been present from the beginning of all life and I've experienced myriad forms, eons of transformations. And now that I'm here as this human being, now considering that, what's the problem with being human? You see, because we don't know, we escape. Imagine you escaped from somewhere and you were like, yeah, I got out of there. And then you realize you had gone there. You chose to go there for a specific work. Imagine somebody goes to work and they're there for the experience of work. But imagine the whole time they're like, yo man, why are people telling me to do things? I dislike this. Why do I have to, maintain, uphold organization structures? It's like, why do I have to behave in a certain way? It's because you've gone there. When in Rome, act Roman. When you're on earth, I thought that it was like, yo man, I'm just pure collective consciousness and ever present. Like there is views to that, but I'm saying like that's not the meaning of life. The meaning of life cannot be all of it, because then there's no meaning to it. The meaning of life is a separate, unique event. Do you understand? It's like, can you imagine that astronaut who's gone out into outer space? And I don't know if people know this, but Astronauts have to be very careful not to strain their muscles by exerting a very firm grip. That means if you see in movies like the astronaut is gripping the thing like so, like maybe it is, I don't know, maybe in extreme situations it can be like that, but it's like, I'm saying the astronaut steps out of the space station, goes outside of the space station to do something about the space station. The astronaut has not gone in outside of the space station to suddenly be like, yo, why am I outside in outer space? I should be enlightened and inside the space station. No, 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 no. It's a work. Many people work, but when it comes to spirituality, they don't want to do the human work. Isn't that funny? I think that's super funny. The person's like, yo, man, I'm such a hard worker. But as consciousness and as a soul, I'm just being. No, I understand, guys. You see, I'm a person who, everything is meaningful and meaningless to me based on how you look at it. Okay? You know, if you look at this world and you think about it through the time of the future, it's filled with endless meanings because you don't know what sort of future you can enter. You look at it from the past, it has no meaning. It's past. Meaning is past. You know, what meaning can the past have? It's past, you know? So, I guess where I'm taking my own attention, where my interest has come to now. Is that it's not about the shapes and forms anymore. It's kind of like the quality of how it all happens. You know, after some point, even the sense of separate meaning doesn't make sense. Like, this world is so multidimensional. It's sometimes when I give these talks and I think about reality, I feel like every day we live, we're spiraling around the central truth. The poet Rumi has this incredible poetic imagery in his poetry, and he depicts a love story between a moth and a candle flame. The poetry goes to say that this moth was flying around this candle flame, and suddenly its wing catches on fire. Now, since this is a love story, as the moth is falling, he looks at the candle flame, its lover, and says, "How could you burn me? All these nights I have been flying around you, keeping you company." All these nights I invested in you. I gave myself to your moment. How could you burn me? Now keep in mind, they're lovers. The candle flame. How can you think that I would burn you when all these nights I have been burning bright to keep you warm, to give you a purpose. You see, the point of the moral of that story was that the purpose of the moth was the candle flame, and the purpose of the candle flame was the moth. But the moment these two purposes got close, they weren't themselves anymore, so their purposes changed. Right now, there's 8 billion human beings on this planet. We can, for argument's sake, let's say that there was the world had been, somebody had successfully dominated the world. Let's just for argument's sake. Okay, let's say that there was world domination. Some tyrant was successful. This tyrant, how would I say it? In this world domination, okay, that's a bad metaphor. Let me, I'm trying to say that if we stop behaving like humans, just like the moth and the candle flame, the purposes of this universal sector will change. Our ancestors were not just physical beings. There has been a lot of invisible preparation just for you to be able to hear this. When I say invisible preparation, the poet Rumi, he said something incredible in his poetry once. He said, "You must work in the invisible as hard as you work in the visible." Most people think the invisible is just such a simplicity that you don't have to do anything. But why would the ancient mystics say, why would the most enlightened yogis say that, great man, you got enlightened, but you must still finish your duty in this world? You see what I'm saying? Just because you had a spiritual experience doesn't mean your human work is done. There is another story I can relate to this. This story is from the mountain of Arunachala in India. And there was a great sage there by the name of Sri Ramana Maharshi. This man, you don't know, guys, some yogis are so incredible beings that the world finds them. You know, this was something that when I remember when like after a couple of years of my YouTube channel, I truly understood. You know, I'm someone who I have a feeling that sometimes some of the blessings I have in my life are because I see blessings. There was a time where my human existence didn't feel like a blessing. It felt, believe it or not, like a shackle. It felt like a burden. But once you accept and make a decision, the decision I made, and I'll finish that Ramana Maharshi thing I was going to say. The decision that I made is that if I'm an unknown being, then how do I know being human is wrong? Or I shouldn't be. If we're unknown beings, how do we know reality is non-dual or dual? You see the depth of honesty that is required with oneself, others, and world. To truly realize, like, think about it, how many beings can be content in an unknown world? That's the game. And if you think you're a known self, how can you be content? It's unknown. That story of Sri Ramana Maharshi I wanted to tell you. A lot of Western disciples go to India and they start, you know, going to satsangs. There's a very interesting pattern in yogic culture that the realized beings, their realizations extended to domains of the psyche. So I'll give you an example. Ah, man, let me finish the story and then I'll give you an example. So, anyways, bunch of these Western individuals go to India, go to this ashram of Sri Ramana Maharshi, and they sit there, and Sri Ramana Maharshi looks at them and says, "Yo, keep silent, meditate, meditate. Ask yourself, who am I? Wonder about what is the sense of I and all this." And all those disciples in the ashram, they were like, all right, they were going along. There was this one individual in the ashram, which Sri Ramana Maharshi, this enlightened being, was giving all the work to the degree that a bunch of these, let's say, more openly kind-hearted, you know, uh, Western individuals, the thing about, I would say, Eastern cultures is that they have a lot of discipline, but their hearts are a bit sealed. Why? Because the sophistication of their identities are, uh, there's a bit more complexity in the East of how you live as an individual than the West, believe it or not. I would say that in the West, there's emotional mastery. In the East, there's, again, discipline, the mastery of discipline. Okay, there's discipline everywhere, of course, but I'm saying there's a cultural, historic development of a context in these areas. So these disciples, they go to Ramana Maharshi and they're like, yo, man, this guy is working, doing everything. Let us do some of the work so he can meditate. Like, why isn't that guy meditating? Why are you telling all your disciples to meditate? And why are you telling this one disciple to just do all the labor, clean everything? And that one disciple was doing all those jobs with such a commitment and dedication. Okay? Ramana Maharshi tells him that he has to. And all the disciples are like, what do you mean he has to? And Ramana Maharshi says he has karmic credit. He's finishing up his karmic credit. He's finishing up his responsibilities as an existential entity in this lifetime. Did you hear what I just said? That individual was not here to get a spiritual experience. He was here to finish the physicality that was left over from how the attention had initiated in the universal sector from the beginning. We think we're individuals, but how can we be when everything else is here, right? So the human psyche, language, as incredible as a technology it has fragmented the psyche of the species. But this psychological fragmentation doesn't mean it's wrong if we are multidimensional beings. If we're multidimensional beings, then we have a capacity to experience ourselves in multiple dimensions. Just like how you have a capacity, let's say a realtor takes you to a home and you look at the different rooms. Similarly, your intelligence has a capacity to experience different rooms of reality. It's just that you think these rooms are in the outer realms. You think the room has to be a physical world. Some rooms are just commands. I don't know how to say it. There's a clue to this. In monotheistic religion, it goes something like this, if I remember correctly. That God imbued from its own breath and created the soul of man, gave the soul of man, gave the soul to the body of man, made man from clay, from some sort of soil. Or some sort of raw element, divine raw element. I mean, that's a proof of a divine periodic table, no? I think that's proof of a divine periodic table when it says God made man from clay. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that God commanded man into existence. This is very different than being created. We call it the creator, but doesn't mean man was created. Man was created, but its creation was commanded. Okay, a command is a pre-known designation. Do you understand? That means there are realities before we were a reality. And so I guess As the great poet Rumi says, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a place. I will meet you there. When the soul sits on that grassland, the world is too full to talk about. Do you know what that means? That means when you become the world, that's when you can love everybody. That's when you'll know what love means. If you're loving individuals as an individual, that is a better ego. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that I'm like, an expert on love. I have loved, of course, individuals. I have loved my species. And this is something that I don't think I even had a choice, just the way my nature was. And if I love myself and my species, then, the space in between is the world. The space in between one conscious activity and the other is like an infinitum of worlds. Mathematically, it would be something like let's say there's like 2 meters of a distance. You want to walk 2 meters, you decide to cut it in half. You walk 1 meter. Now, while you're trying to get to the 1 meter, you decide to cut it in half. You walk half a meter. And as you keep doing this, you will see your steps will become infinitesimally small. Okay, which is another way of saying the division of worldhood leads to infinite selfhood. You right now are an individual in the world. You are one of those infinite selfhoods. If the clue that what is experiencing a body and mind can't just be the body and mind, or how else would it know it's body and mind? If there has to be an additional thing. Like right now, I'm looking at this tree in front of me, and I'm outside of that tree. If I was inside that tree, how could I even see the tree? You see what I'm saying? So there is something to your attention right now, the presence of your attention, that is outside of yourself, but it's not outside inside like that. Even though I'm this guy who uses the name Mr.Within, there will come a moment where the within and without, there's no difference. Because it's being. It's different if you identify with one side. If you identify as an inner entity, you're going to be like, yo, what's the purpose to the idea of me? And if you identify with the other side of the coin, you'd be like, yo, what's the purpose to me just being a shape in the void and be a physical entity in the void? But when these two, like the moth and the candle, this might sound bizarre, I've never said this sentence in this lifetime, but when your body falls in love with your mind, and your mind loves the body, the soul is left to love. The soul is something that somebody can give you proof. The soul is when you take away the non-proof. I don't know how to say it. When you take away, it's not you add. It's something that was there that wasn't anything at all. You see, because when it comes to the psyche, it's attention that stabilizes reality. Anyways, the visions of past skies have inspired us to look at future skies. The visions of future skies will inspire us to become the sky, I guess. In some lectures of mine, I've spoken about the idea of advancement beyond the language threshold. This is a unique concept I've termed and coined. What it implies is that the human being, I give it a, I've had visions. It was for me, there's a time frame to it. 3,600 years from now, there will be, it will be kind of like we will be bored of being endless shape. But right now, in the phase that nature is, we have the privilege of using shape, being shape. And after some point, I'll tell you, you get to feel your own energy. But this energy is not a fragmented, it's not a conditional energy. You get to feel how you can be unconditionally if you don't do something conditional. This is why all the sages are like stillness, silence, sit down for the love of God and wonder about God. You know what? And I guess the way this program is, we are what we are until we become something else, until we, our attention moves. Honestly, right now, I feel like my attention is piloting my whole life. Like literally, there's a pilot of an airplane, right? And consciousness is piloting a plane of existence. Does that mean you have your pilot's license? No. But in the inner realms, yeah. Who knows, guys? I might become a pilot in the future in the outer realms, and take all the people who became channel members, on a special flight, to, I don't know, like somewhere. I love the, let me even see if there's any chats. Oh my God, there are chats. Guys, I'm using this on my phone. I hadn't pressed the chat option. So somebody says, I would accept a command should it be clearly stated. I feel the anger takes over when there's so much I can't see clearly. Anger. First thing, don't lie to yourself. Second, understand that you don't know people. And sometimes when we're angry, we don't know who we're being angry to. And sometimes afterwards, after the damage has been done, we're like, oh man, I was angry. I got angry at such a gentle soul, And anybody who's written negative comments that have made me angry. I'm kidding, guys. It takes a lot to get me angry. You know how I get angry? I get angry when there's inefficiency. Too much inefficiency. It just makes me become a conqueror. Because efficiency is the blessing. Efficiency is what we're looking for. Right now, in 2023, we're like, yo, good beings, bad beings. Do you think in 1,000 years it's going to be good and bad beings? It's just going to be efficiency in all the levels of it. And it's going to be inefficiency in all the levels of it. Right now, we judge an individual based on an instance, correct? And that's of course, in the outer realms, it took us so long. So many people are like, yo, break rules, rebellion. Yeah, do you know how long? How like 4.5 billion years of evolution just so we could create subjective landscapes and boundaries so we don't kill each other. Do you understand? Because it's so easy to become a beast. Do you know how you become a beast? You just have to stop caring. If you stop caring for yourself, you'll become beastly to yourself. You stop caring for others, you will be beastly to them. And it took me a while to understand this. Like this was, sometimes when I think like if there's you know, if there was a karma doctor, you know, and the karma doctor, I was like, doctor, it's like, tell me, doc, you know, what's the problem with my karma, you know? What I think the karmic doctor would say is that sometimes in your intellectual analysis, you get convinced and you think that you know when the other is actually unknown. You will not like this. I don't know. I mean, I sometimes I get angry, but my anger doesn't last. When I was younger, it would last. Something would upset me, and this anger would linger. Like for days, I'd be like, you know, I'd go about my day, like even in, let's say, at the lunch table, and suddenly I'd be like squeezing, like the fork and the spoon, you know, for no reason. You know, I think maybe I did this once, honestly. Like, you know, it's very easy to say I love the world or I love someone, but if we don't know who that being is, our love is deception, no? This is why I like the word love is, it's like one, it's like it's a very intense word, I would say. When somebody says, you know, like imagine somebody says I love beer. Okay, I don't drink, but I'm pretty sure there's some people who love that. You know, so let's say somebody says I love beer, and imagine then, you know, like they get married, you know, and then they say I love my wife. Like, do you understand? Do you see what I'm saying? It's we are loving what we see in the other. But if we realize we are seeing what we have seen in the other, then I think love becomes more of an understanding approach, not just, yo, I feel good, I'm gonna love everything I see. Do you understand that could be dangerous? You know, like I remember seeing this video which blew my mind at the time, and it was this young lady in this YouTube video who was in a domestic violent relationship, and this young lady had, I don't know how she had, like this was her reasoning. Like she was saying, like, if your man like beats you up, you know, she was saying like, if your boyfriend beats you up, that means he loves you because he's willing to hurt you. Like, look at how much he loves you. He cares enough to, like, you know, physically, like, do something. And I was like, oh my God, go beside a bear and have the bear bite you and be like, yo, this bear loves me. It loves me. You know, look at it. It's biting my leg. Do you see what I'm saying? You can love hate. That's how powerful love is, but it doesn't mean it's appropriate. You know, it doesn't mean it's real love even. And of course, you know, I'm someone who, you know, I would consider it. I had one relationship where after that relationship, yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say, right? That we are making words hollow if we apply the word to everything. Like imagine if I say everything is nice. Imagine I step on, like I step on mud, you know, step in a puddle and, you know, my shoe or something. Let's say I step on somewhere and my shoe gets muddy and I'm like, nice, nice. You know, it's like the whole Yes Man movie realization. The guy realized, yo, you don't have to say yes to everything. You got to be human. Be, you know, they say to you, when I was younger, you'd see in movies or something where the kid would be like, I don't know what to do. You know, older, wiser character in the movie. And the older, wiser character would be like, just be yourself, you know? And that kid would be like, what do you mean be myself? What if myself is not enough? Da 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 da. But being yourself means you have to accept some way of yourself, some view of yourself. Like, I sometimes think, you know, I don't know, maybe there could be this counter view that sometimes if you love first, then you can understand. Sometimes maybe if you don't love something, you might not even have the opportunity to understand it. Like I can see that as well. A life beyond life is suggesting the greater life of every being in this universal sector. Dear humanity, you're all universal beings. You're just identifying with, a chunk of the universe. A universal being should not fear itself. It's another way of saying, if you fear your universe, if you fear your world, you haven't understood it. If you fear yourself, you haven't understood it. If you fear death, it doesn't mean you haven't understood life. It means you haven't understood death. For me, it took me 30 years to come to terms with it. To a point where if before this striking fear would come, anytime I would have a sense of my own death, I'll tell you this. I don't know why, but I fathomed that I might die this year. I don't know why this feeling was there. I had this feeling that I might just leave. This like not just leave, like I might be dismissed out of this existence. And then I had such a unique emotion that I hadn't confronted before. I hadn't acknowledged this emotion. And it was just this feeling that what am I expecting? Like, what can happen? It's the design of it. It's designed for us to, if we continue, go to the next place or the next non-place, as I gave a lecture on it. It's either continuity, discontinuity, or you were never this. This is it. I see 3 possibilities here. How I confronted death was that I accepted that I'm going there at some point, right? Like, nobody stays in the same place forever, right? Oh my God. These are yawns of liberation, guys. Yawns of liberation. Thank you for listening. You're in this life to not just see advancement of the world, others. You're here to see your advanced self. Mr. Within's blessing, or I should say Mr. Within's recommendation is that now that you have an opportunity to experience this type of consciousness, why not wonder about the advancement that not your conditional self is worthy, but your unconditional, I can't even say self, your unconditional being is being. You see, the idea is not just advanced humans. I do speak about the advanced civilization. I do speak about the advanced humanity. But the point is advanced beings. That's the clue. That's the pointer. Okay? Advanced being doesn't mean just a physical being. So I guess I'll leave the viewers with this idea that wonder, what would non-physical advancement be? Perhaps the insights of a life beyond life can be found in, you know, our everyday sight. Thank you for listening. Rise, mankind, rise.